Hi there. Welcome back to Tiff Reads Books, where I read books and I talk to you about them. Today, we're going to talk about the next 3 books in the Wayward Children Series. I've already talked about the first 3 and the second 3, and now we're going to talk about the third 3. So this is books 7, 8, and 9. Yes, 7, 8, and 9. I just finished these all back to back to back in the last 3 days. One a day. So let's talk about them. The good thing, the exciting thing for me, these were all 4 and above as far as like my ratings for them, because some of them I would like the previous ones I've had some different opinions on, but anyway, these 3 were all 4 and above. And Hugin's just going to be in the back whining. I'm going to try to not get distracted by it, but he's just been on one the last week. So okay, the good thing about these, in addition to me really enjoying them, is that they were all connected. They all made a cohesive story, and I was very excited about that. So let's briefly recap what happened in the previous books, maybe, because I think we might need to a little bit. So, spoilers for books up to book 6. Spoilers to up to book 6. Brief spoilers. So, book 1, we get introduced to Nancy. And she is just gone to the Wayward Children home, which is a home for children who have gone through a portal to another world and then come back and are missing that place and trying to deal with readjusting to their current life. And most of them really want to go back to that world that they found, because that was the first place they'd ever felt safe or secure or like they fit in, whatever it was for that particular child. We are following children, but I would not say these books are YA, maybe for older teens, but they're not necessarily made for teens, even though we are following teens. I'll say that. So the first book, there is a murder that happens, and we get to solve a murder through following Nancy around, where we get introduced to other members of this community. So we meet Jack and Jill. They are twins who went to the moors, a vampire world. Jack became the assistant of a mad scientist, and Jill became the apprentice to a vampire, essentially, who treated her like a princess. And when they came back, Jill decided she was going to make her own key to go back to that door by taking the best parts of each of the girls she could find. And so she ended up murdering multiple people. Okay? So then book 2 is Jack and Jill's backstory, and we find out how they ended up in the moors, how each of them got separated and picked by their respective man who mentored them, and then we find out why they got kicked out, and that was that Jill started murdering in order to be a better inheritor for the vampire king, essentially. And she was going to be hunted down, so Jack's mentor opened a door for her to leave, and he was like, you don't have to leave, but she needs to leave or they're going to kill her. And Jack was like, I can't abandon my sister. And he was like, here's the key to the door. You can come back whenever you are ready. So at the end of the first book is when Jill I think Jill gets knocked unconscious or she dies. I can't remember which one. And Jack brings her back through the door. Okay. So then we get the backstory. Book 3. We are introduced to a new character, Cora, who is new to the school. She now kind of becomes our guide for the next few-ish. She becomes important. So she is a girl who became a mermaid after she attempted to take her own life because of being bullied for her weight. And she got to go live in the trenches. She was a hero. She's a super athletic child, but she's heavier, so people judge her. And so we're following her as Sumi, who was murdered in the first book. Her daughter comes and she's like, you gotta save my mother. And so we start following these characters who we also met in the first book, including Cade, who is a boy that went to a goblin/fairy world. And when they found out that he was not a girl, they kicked him out. And so he can never go back. And he is set to inherit the school. We also have Christopher, who he went to a land called Mariposa, where he fell in love with the skeleton girl, as he calls her. He went when he, after dealing with chemo for cancer, and he went into this world. And so he's in our world. And who else did we have? So there was a girl called Nadia who was Cora's best friend, and she also went to a drowned world. So they go and find Sumi, they have to find Sumi's bones and then her ghost, and then get her a new body and bring her back. So they go on this whole adventure, and Nadia finds the door to her home while they're at that. So then that brings us to book 4. Book 4 is the backstory for Lundy. Lundy is the counselor in the first book, and she's murdered by Jill. We get her backstory. This one is the one that I would say is a standalone and could be read in any order. But that's Lundy's story. Book 5, then, we're back with Jack and Jill. It's come tumbling down, and Jack rips open a door and brings in her girlfriend, but she's in Jill's body. And so our questers, Cora and Christopher and Cade and Sumi, have to go and help Jack regain her body to transfer back. In this time, Cora gets taken by the drowned gods. The water always calls to her, so these drowned gods call to her, they take her, and she experienced extreme trauma from this. So that brings me into book 6, where we get introduced to Reagan. This one is kind of a standalone, except for that it introduces us to Reagan, who shows up in the other 2 books, not as a main character. Reagan is a horse girl who actually is intersex. She does use she, her pronouns, but she identifies as a horse girl. And when she gets bullied and betrayed by her best friend, who discovers her secret of being intersex and uses that as a way to other her and treat her like she's a monster, she escapes into this world where she becomes a hero after spending years and years with centaurs. And I actually really enjoyed it. A lot of people don't like it because the horse girl is clearly a horse girl book, but I kind of liked it. So then that brings us finally to book 7, where Cora is dealing with the trauma that she experienced from come tumbling down. So I told you all of that to get you here. So she's dealing with the trauma from that. She's being haunted by the voices. They will not leave her alone. She's waking up in the night. She hasn't slept really a full night in months, and she's just struggling like so hard. So she goes into Eleanor's office and she's like, I need to leave. I can't heal here. You said there was another school for people who want to forget. I want to forget because I cannot deal. As much as I love the trenches and I want to go back, I would rather forget. I cannot deal with the trauma that I am having to deal with. And to be fair, the counselors that they have at Eleanor's school are not really set up for dealing with trauma. They're more dealing with them kind of processing the fact that they are in our world, but not necessarily helping them deal with the trauma that they may have experienced. And a lot of these kids have taken lives. They've lived like warriors' lives. Some of them have lived entire, like full lifespans and then come back at their current age. Eleanor needs better counselors, okay? So, Eleanor's like, okay, if that's what you really want, you're not here by force. You can go if that's what you really want. So Cora goes, and it is a hellhole. This is one of those places where they tried to strip your identity, strip your individuality, make everyone conform to the same thing. And if you went to a nonsense world, which they have different names for the worlds, if you went to a nonsense world, for example, you have to be the most boring, plain, logical person. If you went to a logic world, you have to start being nonsensical. And the whole idea is that our world doesn't fit into those clear guidelines. And the thing is the portal worlds don't necessarily either. And that is kind of something that we deal with in book 9 a little bit. But so Cora she decides she wants to leave. And just as she decides she wants to leave, Sumi shows up. Sumi got Cora's roommate, Antsy, who says she can find anything. Antsy, not Nancy. I was very confused. Antsy, it's short for Antoinette. And because she's a constantly moving character. So Cora, basically, Antsy was like, okay, I can find her. And Cora ends up teaming up with Sumi. They kind of reveal what's happening and figure out a way out. And in this, Cora really starts to figure out she gets her confidence back and gets really confident in who she is, what she went through, what she wants. And she realizes she doesn't want to be there. And because she gets that confidence back, she's able to see through all these things. She's able to find that confident warrior that she was before. And she's like, no, you know what? I'm a fucking hero. I'm gonna fucking act like it. I'm tired of these guys telling me what to do, treating me like crap. I am going to take that back. And that was really good to see, because Cora's kind of difficult for me sometimes because of the trauma she experienced from being bullied her whole life for her weight. And as someone who was much smaller in my 20s and am not now, the way that you're treated is so different. Some of that is I'm treated differently now that I'm older too, because yay, that happens. But it was like having to constantly be in Cora's brain can be a little exhausting. And the way these books are written, hi Hugin, the way these books are written is you start off with one character and then slowly the narrator becomes omniscient. And I don't know if that's necessarily a flaw, but I could see it as like head hopping to some people. I don't think it's head hopping because it reads more like someone's telling you the story rather than it hopping back and forth. But the fact that it kind of just randomly switches to very succinctly this person's point of view to, oh, now we're going to get from this person, and now we're going to get from this person, and now we're going to get from this person. And that's kind of how you can start to tell who's a main character, because we get more from their perspective, more of their internal thoughts. So this book kind of switches to Sumi's perspective a few times. And I really like Sumi. She's very chaotic, but when you're in her POV, she has some very logical moments. She's very caring. She's very kind, as much as she comes off also as very cold and aggressive. She's a character who she really knows herself, and she really knows what she wants, and she really knows what she's going to be. And that translates into someone who can kind of fit these different scenarios as needed without feeling like they're forced into it. Hugin gets a little like antsy after dinner. Speaking of the word antsy, he gets like this whole like, oh my god, I need more food, because he eats so fast. He has slow feeders, but my goodness, he eats fast. So he gets like, I'm still hungry while his food settles. And so he starts just like sniffing around and pacing around and looking at everything. It's a little distracting sometimes, but I think he's settling now. So that's book 7, which is where the drowned girls go. I liked that one. I think Cora met some new friends. She really started to understand the fact that people can be friends with her without it being a cruel joke. And it took her a while to get there, but I think she finally got there. So then that brings us into book 8, which is Lost in the Moment and Found. Lost in the Moment and Found. Some of these titles, I get so confused on what's what. So book 8 is Lost in the Moment and Found. And that is Antsy's backstory. So we kind of go back in time a little bit to figure out what happened with her. And so this one is one that I would read with caution. There is an author's note in the beginning that there are depictions of grooming and like this looming feeling of assault on a child. Antsy is 6 when the story really starts, and Shauna Maguire does say that I want you to know that before anything bad happens, Antsy runs. So, and that's true. Nothing actually really happens to her apart from a lot of mental abuse. And like, I don't know if it's not grooming in the sense that she was like given gifts and won over. It's grooming in the sense of like, your mother likes me more than you. Your mother will always believe me over you. No one will ever believe you. It's that type of abusive manipulation. And so it was so hard to listen to. The audio narrator is really, really good. And the way that the story is written is very like, you really feel what this child is feeling. And she goes through so much in the first like hour of the book. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard. But then it was so satisfying when she got out of it. And the way that she comes into her world, and she goes into a nexus world. And so her world is a store where doors open to other doors. And we get some more lore about like what the doors are and how they work and what the cost of the doors are. And that was really cool. I really like that. I would read so much more about Antsy. I think she is one of the best characters we've had introduced. Her growth in the story, her strength in the story, she only goes through 2 years. 2 years in her world. And the cost of that 2 years is a lot. And when she figures out the cost, she really like goes hard against fixing it. And that's when her world kicks her out, because then she becomes unsure. And that becomes this whole thing. So then she finds her way to the school. And they're all going to find their way to the school. So it's not necessarily a spoiler, and they all get kicked out of their worlds, and that's not necessarily a spoiler. So, but what happens and how her world works and who turns against her and all these things are really, really good and really done well. But that first hour is, I think, it can be a little traumatic. So I would definitely make sure you read the author's note in the beginning. And I did like that the audiobook read that, because the audiobooks don't read the author's notes at the end, but I'm glad that they read the one that was in the beginning at least. So I think that was important to have there, especially given that she is so young and she doesn't understand things. So then book 9 is Mislaid in Parts Half Known. And this is now, it starts off at the same time as book 7 starts off. So we have a little tiny overlap where we're getting like a kind of like a prologue of like, here's what happened when Antsy first came to the school, when she first became Cora's roommate, and when Cora disappeared, and then we jump into the story. So we're back with Cora having come back to the school, and people finding out that Antsy can find anything, and that might mean that she can find their doors. So that, of course, leads to some interesting situations with some characters that we've known about but haven't really ever interacted with. And so we learn a little bit more about a couple of characters. And then we get back with our questing group of Cade, and Christopher, and Cora, and Sumi, and we also get Emily, who came from the other school. And Emily and Christopher seem to have come from like similar worlds, which was kind of nice. So I liked that. This was the dinosaur cover book, and for it being a dinosaur book, there wasn't a lot of dinosaurs in it. So I will say, basically, to escape a situation that happens, we go back to the Nexus world. And in this book, we're dealing a lot with the fact that Eleanor is consistently classifying a lot of the worlds as nonsense because she sees the nonsense in everything because she came from a nonsense world. And to Cade and Cora and some of the older students, to them, that means she might be slipping a little bit. And they're a little bit concerned and trying to figure out how they're going to approach her giving up some more of the control. She has some older students, some ones that are not planning on leaving or going back to their old lives, including Cade, that could take on more of this responsibility. And Cade's, one of his obsessions is the compass of the worlds. And he's not getting accurate information because Eleanor is classifying everyone as nonsense, even when they're not. And so Antsy is a great source of information for him because she knows so much about the doors. She's opened so many. She's seen so many worlds. She understands them. She is this fantastic source of information for Cade. And so he kind of pulls a little bit of information out of her at some times, and other times I was like, I need the two of them to just sit down and have a conversation about the doors. I would listen to that. I would read that. That would be so good. And so I liked that part of it. Antsy gets to kind of finish out her story in that she gets to deal with the issue from her book in this book. And because they have to go back to that Nexus world. We also get Emily, who came from the school, gets to reunite with a girl that was dorming with them and found her door when they were going back through Sumi's world in book 7. So she gets to kind of reunite. That's the dinosaur world. We get to kind of understand how someone might be happier in a land with no humans around and how other people don't understand that and that type of thing. The dinosaur world was kind of cool, but at the same time, like, we just didn't get enough of it for it to really warrant the dinosaurs on the cover. I was kind of disappointed with that. So that was my disappointment with that one, but I liked the rest of the book. We got more of Cade's story too. We really got some of Cade's backstory, and I love Cade so much. Cade is my sweet little child, and I adore him. He has been through so much. He is such a kind character. He takes responsibility for so many other characters, for so many things, and he's just like the older sibling of everyone, and I identify with that so hard as always being party mom. I definitely identify with a party dad, like, a lot. And so him taking that responsibility, always being the one to make sure everyone's okay and everyone has what their needs and everyone's happy, to the detriment of his own needs at times, that I really identify with that, and I need Cade to have some happiness. So getting more of his backstory and seeing Sumi kind of look out for him a little bit in the way that she did, really, these two as like siblings just like make my day. I really enjoyed that. So this one was really satisfying as far as like the ending goes and the story and the introduction. So I think if I look at them in groups of threes, which you kind of can in some sense, I think this one is my favorite group of three in the cohesiveness of the stories. They can be read all in a group like I did, and it feels like one novel from front to back with like some connection pages in between, just with different parts. But it really feels like one big story, and I really liked that feeling. There is a benefit of these being novellas. I love that they are novellas. I absolutely love a novella, and I love to be able to sit down and have something done in a couple hours and just be like, yeah, okay, that was satisfying. Like, but I love that these connected so much in the way to be one cohesive story, and it felt so much more satisfying than some of the other stories in the way that they wrapped up. And of course it left us on a cliffhanger. Book 10 is I have a hold on it. It's coming soon, and then we'll talk about everything up to this point, maybe in a like kind of long, although this one was kind of me talking about everything up to this point. So maybe we'll just leave it at that for this, and then when the next three are done, I'll talk about it, but that'll be like 3 years from now. So I really think if you weren't sure about the series, I know it sucks for me to be like, get to book 7, but I really think like you could actually probably pick up these 3 books and just read them, and you might be a little bit confused, but you probably could. No, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. I would give it a go. But I think these 3 books, if you've read to this point, to like book 6, and you're like, I don't know, because book 6 really wasn't for me, because of course that was the horse girl one, and if you're like, I think I'm done with this series, I think these 3 as a cluster really kind of pull the series back up to like a solid 4-star series for me. And I think that is important, I guess. So anyway, like I said, I have a hold. I think it said 2 weeks for, I'm first in line. Whenever this person finishes with it, it's mine. For Adrift on Currents Clean and Clear, I think it is. And then the 11th book comes out in January. Which is crazy to me that there are so many of these books and they come out once a year. So that book comes out soon, and I plan on reading it when it's out. And we'll see how that goes. I really want more of Cade. There's also, that's what I was gonna say, there's a bunch of short stories that are published on, I think, Tor.com or Reactor magazine, can't remember which one. All the short stories in between, and there's some Christopher stories and stuff, and I want to read those. I think I might do a video of like reading those. Since they're only like 2 to 10 pages a piece. So we'll see how that goes at some point. But so far, I am still continuing with the series. I do recommend the series. I think I understand how it maybe is not what a lot of, like for some people that say they just don't like it. I understand. But I do really recommend giving it a try if you're unsure. At least get to the second book, because I think book 2, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones, book 2 is definitely better than book 1 by a lot. So if you weren't sure about book 1, read book 2. Jack and Jill are great. I love their story. I love the Moors. I love her so much. So that's where I'm at with the Wayward Children series. I've caught up so much in the last couple of months, and I'm just continuing to read through my series. So I will talk to you soon with something else. And thanks for hanging out with me.